We got Gators Breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC, bringing you right here reaction to Florida's first spring scrimmage of 2025. It was held on Tuesday. Billy Napier spoke to the media right after that. We'll get to hear from some players who have spoken recently as well, in Hayden, Hansen, and Jaden Robinson. And for the first time, we'll hear from quarterback coach Ryan O'Hara as well, who spoke on Wednesday, the day after the scrimmage. So lots to get into here on this episode of Gators Breakdown as we continue our spring football coverage. Lots to get into. There'll be another episode of Gators Breakdown out pretty soon. It will cover and preview the Final Four. So if you're looking for some basketball coverage, that we will continue to do so right now here on Gators Breakdown. Be on the lookout for that as well. But this episode still in spring football mode on the heels of the Gators' first scrimmage. So, of course, lots to get into there. But before we do, remember, our spring practice coverage is brought to you by Florida Victorious. You can be the difference by joining Florida Victorious, as your support can directly impact the outcome on the field. You want to help the Gators win? Well, hey, that's a good way of doing so. Florida Victorious empowers the Gators to be their best. You enjoy player access? Sure you do. Well, you get that at Florida Victorious. Members receive invitations to exclusive events like the meet and greet after this orange and blue game. If you want to meet the players on the field of the Swamp, become a member of Florida Victorious. You can meet and greet the players after the game. Access to exclusive merchandise and memorabilia. You get great sports coverage there from Nick De La Torre. He's got some insider notes from the scrimmage as well right there on the Florida Victorious message board. There's never been a better time to join. So join today and make a difference in bringing victory to the orange and blue. Visit floridavictorious.com to join now. All right. So let's get to it. A lot of sound bites in here too. Like I said, we get limited by Florida from about 3 minutes per person there. So I'm going to read what Billy Napier said about the comments about the quarterback, his comments there, and then he will dive into the spring a little bit, into the scrimmage a little bit more. He did meet with the media, did Billy Napier, after the scrimmage on Tuesday. It will be the only scrimmage besides the orange and blue game. Originally, there were supposed to be 3. The first one was supposed to be this past Saturday, but that didn't happen. I'm wondering if it had something to do with the basketball team's game and not wanting the scrimmage and letting the players and the student athletes, of course, watch that that game on Saturday. So, but scrimmage was pushed to Tuesday and will be the only one besides the orange and blue game. Billy Napier started off with, so we got a lot of good work today. Hey, guys, and here's the most part. We stayed healthy. We already know this team's fighting a good bit of injuries. Nothing really major right now. Too concerned with quarterback DJ Lagway, with the secondary, with defensive line. Just some guys not taking part. Precaution. He went on to say, I thought for the most part a really productive day. I did not think that we started fast. I thought that early in the scrimmage, we were kind of knocking the cobwebs off. But I would say the second, third, fourth quarter of the game today was really some good effort. I thought it was physical, and I think we have to make progress and work towards being a tough-minded group and fundamentally sound group, and then one that can handle the adversity and momentum, whether it's a home game against a formidable opponent or some of these road games, some of these venues that we have to deal with. A lot of situational football, but in general, a ton of progress. We came in here Saturday, and I thought we had our best football practice of the spring. And then today, took a step forward. So in general, it was a very positive day. So, of course, asked about quarterbacks early on. Billy Napier had to say on the quarterback play in the scrimmage, quote, I thought for the most part, when the pocket was clean, that they were effective. I thought Aidan Warner, in particular, did a lot of good things. I do think that we got some legit rushers on defense, and I think that it was very competitive relative to protecting the quarterback, affecting the quarterback. Thought we tipped some balls. There would have been quite a few quarterback hits today, just back there standing behind them. But I do think that both guys did a lot of positive things. Aidan in particular, early I thought was really sharp. There you go. Of course, DJ Lagway, not throwing so far. He's right there with Napier behind the offense. Aidan Warner, Harrison Bailey getting most of the reps here in spring practice in this first scrimmage. And Aidan Warner looking sharp, says Billy Napier. And I mean, there's been some highlights out there. Florida sharing highlights there of Warner on Twitter and on the social media. Dropping dimes. So we'll get into some notes of what he was able to do, but just going by the conversation, or going by the comments here by the head man himself, really pointing out Aidan Warner's play. I was asked about DJ Lagway's progression and what he's been able to do. Quote, he's doing great. He actually played quite a few plays today. He didn't throw. So he was able to participate in the scrimmage. He's just been modified in terms of his ability to throw the ball. Obviously, it's really a more of a holistic approach in terms of what we're doing with him. But in general, he's doing great. Today, he played every play from behind. He stood back there with me, got the play call. We've been having him call some plays in 7-on-7 drills just to kind of reiterate that communication. I think we've given him some leadership assignments. We're doing a ton of walkthrough rooms in the Gator room and the Heavener Center. So overall, he continues to get a little better each day. All right, so let's get into. I do advise you guys to go to Florida Gators' official site and go to the press conferences and watch one with Ryan O'Hara. I mean, we're going to stick on quarterbacks here. He's, of course, the quarterback's coach now for the Gators. Really had a lot to say. We'll get into most of what he had to say here, but really engaging there and tells a good story about kind of his journey here to Florida and sticking with Napier. We'll get into all that. But really, really, really good. So I advise you guys to go watch it for yourselves and what Ryan O'Hara had to say. But here he is discussing his role becoming the quarterback coach and the development of DJ Lagway.
That's really important to me. You know, I've been working 8 years with Coach Napier now and have always wanted to be the full-time quarterbacks coach. And I've been in the analyst capacity working with the quarterbacks. And then last year was, you know, when we had the rule change, that was great for me because then I could fully go ahead and coach the quarterbacks. And so that's what I love. That's my passion. It's my craft. And so to finally be recognized now as the quarterback coach, I take great pride in that. And there's nothing I want to do more than help these guys improve every day. Been working at it a long time. This is year 18, you know, coached high school, junior college, was a volunteer in Group of 5, coached FCS, you know, now Power 5, and worked my way up. And I'm proud of my journey, and it's been a good one. It's been a long one. I've learned every step along the way. And, you know, look up, and now I'm the quarterback coach for the Florida Gators. So it's really been something that's been great, and I'm excited about the opportunity.
Was that a difficult transition last year, kind of going from being held back by the analyst title and then NCAA comes in and changes the rules, and now you kind of get thrown into the fire as a full-time coach? Kind of
it's interesting because at first you're like, you still kind of got that analyst feel where you have to be very careful so you don't get the program in trouble, get yourself in trouble. But then after the first couple weeks, you know, I kind of got into my groove and it felt right and got back to doing what I do, you know, because you know, high school, JUCO, FCS, that's what I did. I was quarterbacks coach. And so, you know, it's like riding a bike. You get back on and you get after it. You know, and there's a lot of conversation with the quarterbacks in between. I know the system very well. I've been with Coach 8 years now. So in terms of that, I know the system really well. And so just jumping in, get going, and you know, with no hesitation there was the biggest thing. Once I got past that, it was all good. Just got back on the bike, essentially. Yeah.
I'm sure in an ideal world, you would love to have DJ throwing the ball and trying to develop as much as he can throughout the spring. But how have you seen him respond to the responsibilities taken on with play calling, signal calling, and just the mental development?
Yeah, you know what? DJ is such a unique person because he's so talented, but at the same time, he may be the hungriest football player I've ever coached. Guy just has a passion to learn and try to be the best. So he's taken on every single part of the offense now. So now last year was like, got to get you to learn the system and the offense and the shifts and the motions and the run checks. And, oh, by the way, what's the defense doing, which is really hard to figure out in the SEC. But now he's starting to take that next step in terms of learning the intent behind the play. What are we trying to accomplish with this? What are the problems, right? What pressure can hurt us? Maybe what's the coverage where this concept doesn't work out? And that's where I think he's really taking the next step. He's starting to become that coach on the field. Okay, whereas last year he made a lot of plays, and he kind of knew what was going on, and his instincts are so pure that he can make it happen. But now he's becoming really dialed in. His leadership, I think, is going to the next level, okay? And he's becoming more vocal this year, you know, because he kind of transitioned into that role when he became the full-time starter last year. But now he's not afraid to get on guys, whether it's, you know, good and bad. And he's having those conversations in between racks with people. You know, he's coaching them up, and he's really taking the next step in terms of his leadership and just his own quarterback development. I think he's been really good. That's really important to me. You know, I've been working 8 years with Coach Napier now, and have always wanted to be the full-time quarterbacks coach. And
Oh, sorry about that. Had that on repeat. Didn't mean to. But anyway, you got the gist there of Ryan O'Hara. Look, later he praised Lagway, saying Lagway has the best football instincts that he's ever seen. He sees everything quicker just as a football player, not just a quarterback, that he sees the field as good as anyone he's ever been around. Once the offseason hit, it was really just time to dissect coverages there for Lagway and what defenses are showing him. Of course, we all know the physical attributes of DJ Lagway, and we know the next step is mental. So that's what they're working on. And really, you heard him explain right there everything about DJ Lagway. And as I said, he went on to say, hey, we know now it's the mental parts of it. Got the instincts to go along with it. Now we just got to dissect coverage, show what the defense are trying to do against him, so he can adjust and learn from those issues. And I guess with the lack of throwing, probably a little more mental this time anyway, as you've heard what Napier and O'Hara had to say the first few weeks of spring practice. So we know DJ Lagway getting all the mental reps he can get, and maybe not a bad thing when it's all said and done. Now we'd all love to see him out throwing and doing both and get the physical reps and the mental reps, but the mental part is the next step. Hopefully there's not much physical that's being lost in not throwing this spring. Still would love for him to get that rapport with the new receivers that are out there, even more experience with this offensive line that's coming back. So, but right now, I don't think you'd hear much more glowing praise there of DJ Lagway from anywhere else. I mean, really good stuff there from O'Hara, and really his relationship with Lagway, his relationship with Napier, and just what they expect from the quarterback moving forward. Ryan O'Hara did go on to say about Aidan Warner that he's coming along because, and that he's come a long way because he didn't go through spring nor summer last year. He was a scout team quarterback at one point, ended up playing important snaps, as we all know, against Georgia and Texas. And now he can tie that experience together in the battle for the number 2 spot behind Lagway. O'Hara says he does have the arm talent and that they're working on pocket presence, leadership, and communication, and not forcing the ball for his areas of improvement. So, pocket presence, leadership, communication, and not forcing the ball. That's what they're working on with Aidan Warner. Of course, he was thrust into action last year. The speed of the game was the hardest part for Warner, said Ryan O'Hara. Harrison Bailey is in that competition as well, and O'Hara mentions his size and his arm talent, and that his experience shows up because he can see the field well. He sees blitzes, helps slide protection, and he's got poise and moxie. Now, it's about learning this Gators system and dialing in his footwork to get the ball out on time. O'Hara says Bailey is a film room junkie. O'Hara kept it going with really praising the wide receiver room as a deeper group with versatility. And for his quarterbacks, it's about finding the best matchup and trusting your guys to win their matchup, or find that sweet spot in the zone and keeping the ball away from problem areas. So toward the end of Ryan O'Hara's press conference, he was asked about sticking with Coach Napier through other job offers and promotions, and says he really just believes in the vision and wants to see Florida win multiple national championships. Believes that the program is on track for that. All right, there we go. That was the major storyline. Everybody was going to talk quarterback. We heard from Napier, heard from Ryan O'Hare. Let's talk some scrimmage notes, and then we'll hear from Billy Napier on the other side of that, of him diving into the scrimmage. First team defense was going up against second team offense, and mostly that and vice versa. Some highlights in the passing game featured Aidan Warner hitting Jaden ball for an explosive completion for about 35 yards. And then following that up with another to J. Michael Sturdivant. Aiden Mizell had a very productive scrimmage, including a long catch and run, making people miss, scoring a touchdown, kind of reminiscent of that Mississippi State touchdown that was called back. Jacoby Jackson had about a 30-yard run for a touchdown in the second half of the scrimmage. Early on, there was an early tip pass. You've seen the highlights of this out there on Twitter. An early tip pass by edge rusher Cam James of Harrison Bailey that then James returned for a touchdown of about 25 yards. James and Sapp were an issue when on the field. George Gums being limited in this scrimmage, but as you heard Billy Napier say, as we went over, we'll get into it more in just a bit too, but his initial reaction from the scrimmage was it was a good battle between this experienced offensive line and the pass rush. Defense won the day, but offense did their part too. But Sapp, James, issues when they were on the field. Devin Moore picked off an Aidan Warner pass in the end zone intended for J. Michael Sturdivant. Expanding it a little bit, first kick returners, Aidan Mizell and J. Michael Sturdivant, and then Nashawn Montgomery, the true freshman, also involved. Vernell Brown, Dallas Wilson getting involved in the passing game as well in the scrimmage. So even more, as I mentioned, Florida victorious. Nick De La Torre with some good insider notes with his partnership with Florida victorious. He's there, getting to hang out and put more out there than anybody else. So good for Nick and good for us out there too to be able to know what's going on through Florida victorious and Nick De La Torre right there in this Gators first scrimmage. All right, so let's hear more from Billy Napier on the scrimmage, starting with which skill players stood out.
I think the backs and the receiver group, even the tight ends, made a few plays today. Hayden Hansen had a couple really impressive plays. I thought that Mizell, his ability to run after the catch, I thought today that showed up. He had a big touchdown early. I thought we did a nice job blocking on the perimeter. We took advantage of some of the uncovered perimeter throws. But in general, I would say the offensive skill today, there was a lot of good things.
3 new assistants on the defensive side of the ball. Just how are they meshing together more than halfway through camp, and what did you see out of those guys just from having their first game-like experience with the team?
Yeah, I think it's just in general, we didn't start very well today. But I think as we settled in, I thought that we were pretty good. I think first couple possessions of the day, and we almost had to get lathered up a little bit. But as we got into it, I thought it was pretty good. We had some interceptions today, made some plays on some balls. I do think that the defensive staff, there's a ton of experience in the system. I think for Darren, obviously he's worked in Ron's tree. So being with Pete Golding at UTSA, obviously his time at Arkansas, there's a ton of concept carryover. He was here for a year. And then Vinny, on the back end, his experience at Alabama and certainly with the Patriots, there's a ton of carryover. It's for him, it's a little bit more translation. And then Coach Balla has coached in this system for a number of years. So I think that's where I think we're probably a little farther ahead. I think those guys hit the ground running. Just in general, we're getting lined up and we're playing fast. I think the rush, the coverage is working well together. First, second, and third level, I think we're a little farther ahead just because of the veteran players. And then I think it's year 4 in the system. So playing much faster. And we get these vets back on the D-line and the secondary, got a chance to be pretty good over there.
Billy, you said the rush was able to get after it today. How do you feel like that was a byproduct of the offensive line? How do you think they performed? And is that just what you're going to see with going against that edge group and that defensive line, is they're going to get pressure no matter who they go against?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying. I just think it was competitive. I think we protected pretty well for the most part. But, there were sacks. There were pressures. There were QB hits in a game. But you got a ton of third down, long work. You got 2 minute. You got a ton of passing situations. So I think some of the young rushers are good, like Jaden Woods is a factor. Kofi continues to make progress. He's showing up. So those 2 young guys, I've been very pleased with the progress Caden Jones and Fletcher Westfall have made. Those guys are coming into their own a little bit. So, and then obviously Bryce is doing a great job. In general, on the edges there, that's a battle. Cam, LJ, Sapp, Gums, Jaden, Kofi. We got some guys that can rush, and you add a pressure into that. Some of those backers are pretty good too.
Now, I remember that's what I like seeing a lot last year. I remember Shamar James coming off the edge a bit. You didn't know if he was going to be dropping into coverage or coming off. Confusing offenses. Pup Howard, getting pressure that ended up in a Jack Pyburn interception versus Georgia. That's what he's talking. Napier talking about. Those backers in pressure situations or blitz packages can make an appearance too. But really, just talking about that edge rush group and guys, I was talking about this on Gators Breakdown Plus today. On the in the chat, we were just having a little bit of chat, and Jaden Wood's name's coming up again. And I know if many of you guys are out there like me, it's hard to buy in to a true freshman getting so much hype. But I think this is going to be legit hype. I think by the time season rolls around, Jaden Wood's going to be. I mean, don't get me wrong. You heard Billy Napier go down the list of names, and then there's some competition at that edge spot. Man, I am not going to be shocked if Jaden Woods is a freshman making a big impact. And I don't know how big of an impact. The first name that comes to mind in that kind of pass rush mentality for me recently for a freshman that did some type of things like that I'd want to see, that I'd want to live up to, would be like a Harold Perkins, of course. Everybody would want that. So just give me something close to that, okay? And I'm happy. But no, if Jaden Woods doesn't do that in year one, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, never mind. That hype was unwarranted. No, let's give it some time. It's rare for it to happen that way. But just hearing his name over and over again, and just kind of from the workout portion of it as well, before we even got to spring practice, of a guy who showed up ready, a guy who's a workout warrior, a guy who's killing workouts, to now his name continuing to be said over and over again. I think there's something there to that. I think there's something there than just hype and a freshman who's just standing out. It might be a legit player. You're not going to care about class when it all comes down to it this fall there for Jaden Woods. I'm eager to see when we get to the season if it translates like we're hearing so much right now. We all know, there's freshmen, there's guys that all throughout are spring heroes, and we never hear from them again. I don't think that's going to be the case here. Okay, we heard skill players being talked about a bit, and we discussed the running back position earlier this week on Gators Breakdown, and Napier had even more praise for Jacoby Jackson, who we heard from Jabbar Jaluk and Jackson himself earlier this week on Gators Breakdown. Napier did go on to say, quote, one of the things I've been impressed with him is he has developed a voice as a leader. I think he's a guy who came in and was under-recruited, a guy that had to do the hard work to develop, get himself in shape, truly has earned everything he's been given here. We went from the bottom of the depth chart, relatively unknown, until the last offseason, spring practice, training camp, and all of a sudden he worked his way into the rotation there. Took advantage of Trayon being injured, and then here we go. So he's one of the better leaders, in my opinion, on the team. I think that's going to be pivotal for our team going forward. He's extremely competitive. So kind of just continuing the message that we heard on the last episode of Gators Breakdown from Jaluk and Jackson himself, that it's a concerted effort for him to be a leader now, and looks like even the head man is noticing. More skill player talk right here, and one of the first names mentioned in that soundbite that you heard, and all the skill players, was tight end Hayden Hansen. Hansen, couple of nice plays in the scrimmage that included a touchdown catch with a pass from Aidan Warner. A player that's putting in work to be a more complete player. Here's more from Hansen from earlier this spring?
A point of emphasis for me always is going to be route running, speed out of a stance. I've been working with a lot of the wide receivers, the GAs, the assistant coaches in that matter. I feel like that's the last part of my game that I need to solidify, and that's what I'm out to prove this season. So been getting a lot better. Stretching routine, stuff like that, getting out of breaks faster. I've already noticed the difference 3 days in the spring ball, so I'm looking forward to it.
Is that something new, working with the receivers and getting in that extra work with some of those matches?
Yeah, I mean, I've always set that work aside, but this year, this offseason, I've really emphasized it. Like, I've really went out the way to do it just as much as I do anything else, and I've already seen a lot of improvements there.
Is there anybody you're working with specifically, receiver-wise, or coach that's helped you on top of those?
Yeah, for sure. Coach Lucas, he's one of the analysts here. Dallas Wilson, new guy, which, by the way, complete freak. He's going to be a great player. J. Mike from the transfer from UCLA, all great guys, all hungry guys. We all go out there and work. Kind of slowed down now that spring ball starts. It's too much on the body, but before that, it was like about twice a week, some intense work after workouts. So I've seen it pay off.
How do you think you kind of expanded your game last year? You had a couple, I remember, pretty nice catches in the seam, some stuff like that we maybe didn't see the year before. And how are you going to build on that and maybe take your pass catching the next step?
For sure, yeah. I feel like I'm always capable of that. I've always have been. So when my number got called last season, I felt like I made the most of it. So hopefully the ball finds me more. I'm gonna do whatever the team needs me to do. But I like showcasing that I can do it. So next time, I always look to improve off those situations. So next time when I catch a seam, instead of getting 20 yards after the catch, go score it. Figure out ways to get separation from guys. So
year 4. What's the depth of playmakers now on this roster comparatively, you think?
Oh, it's night and day, and it's not even just playmakers. It's just genuinely good people. It's amazing to be in that locker room, and even the tight end room, for example. We got about 4 or 5 guys that could go out and play. And we're all healthy for the first time. I know Amir is a little banged up, but he'll be fine. It's crazy. I think it's our first year with 5 or 6 tight ends. I don't have to take reps with the 1s and 2s. I can take a little break and really focus on the reps that I need to be worried about. So it's like that with all positions.
Tony kind of had a breakout year too, and I see you guys are working together a lot. What's that relationship like? And he's another kind of big body blocker too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Tony's had his ups and downs with injuries too, and he's always willing to put in the extra work. And based off these 3 days of film I've seen, me and Tony being together on 12 personnel is going to create a lot of problems, especially in the run game. We're both about 260, 265 right now. We're people movers, and when we're asked to run routes, we can get separation too. So it's going to be harder for defenses to read. So I'm excited.
There you go. You heard about that 12 personnel, and but of course, Hansen went on the joke around a bit about how much he's blocking and basically another offensive lineman at times. He says he wished his offensive line coach Rob Sell would change the 5=1 mantra for the offensive line to 6=1 to include him at tight end. So good stuff there by Hayden Hansen. Love hearing that Hansen doing what he needs to take that next step as a receiving tight end and evolving to become more of a dual threat at the spot with all the weapons around him. You heard him talk about the weapons, how deep they are at the skill player position. There should be plenty of catch and run opportunities if he develops his game into that. So Hansen, you could see it, last year. Arlis Bordyham didn't take that jump that we expected last year. It was more, Hayden Hansen taking a bit of a jump as becoming a more well-rounded tight end. Had that big catch late in the LSU game that set up the Jaden ball run. So you certainly can see, we know Florida's going to be in that 12 personnel a good bit in 2 tight ends, but I expect more 1 tight end sets there, and Hansen maybe becoming more of a passing threat at the tight end spot. So certainly a guy that I'm looking for another jump, and you heard him. And credit to Dallas Wilson and J. Michael Sturvin, new faces, coming in, and you heard Hayden Hansen say, hey, those are guys that I'm working with, guys that are helping me. As I'm training with wide receivers to become a better receiving tight end, it's the new faces that are helping me out. Speaks to the culture of this team, which, hasn't really been in question the whole time, but nice hearing those things. Going back, speaking of the offensive line, as we spoke about, and Hayden Hansen was joking about, Billy Napier was asked about the offensive line as well, and in particular, you heard him say just good competition between them and the defensive line and the edge group. Billy Napier did say, quote, 4 starters coming back. I think we're deeper than we've ever been. I think we've got a ton of competition with that second group. In general, the best offensive line group we've had since we've been here as a whole. I think the culture in that room is as good as it's ever been. I think that the coaches are doing an outstanding job. The tape has been clean. It's been a lot of fun to watch. I think if you want to be a good team, you've got to be good up front. The game starts up front. If you're not good up front, if you're not good there, you got no shot. In general, the pride there, the leadership in that room, the relationships, the energy there, I think the relationships with the coaches. You've got Jake Slaughter, Austin Barber, Najee Harris, Damian George, very experienced players. So I think anytime that you got 4 out of 5 coming back, it's a good thing. It's no different than when we get the secondary back. I think that will be a strength for us as well. Discuss the offensive line as we had our trench warfare, our trench talk just a couple of weeks ago right here on Gators Breakdown, where we talked offensive line, defensive line. So if you want to hear more there from, who is it, Rob Sell, Jake Slaughter, Austin Barber, went deep into the offensive line on one of the previous episodes of Gators Breakdown. But, yeah, certainly, the style of offense Napier runs, I mean, look, he's right. I mean, it's hard to make up for a good offensive line or for a bad offensive line. Can it be done? It can. But in this style of offense, I think the offensive line is just a little bit more important when asking to hold blocks longer in those long developing play action plays. We know the strength and the success of the run blocking. Having this many pieces return, you got to take advantage. And Rob Sell talking about how deep and how good this group is. Billy Napier talking about how deep and how good this group is. And I've said it over and over again. Development was going to be their calling card. Recruiting has gotten a little bit better in that room too, but not the high level 4-star, 5 stars that we love to have, but guys who are now going to be in this system for 2, 3, 4 seasons. Those guys will be getting counted on right now. So big time. We're ready to see this offensive line take advantage of all the returning pieces. Billy Napier did, of course, mention kind of like offensive line. When we get the secondary back, it's going to be a strength as well. Well, let's go more to the defense. And Napier was asked about linebacker Jaden Robinson and Florida's young linebackers. Napier said, yeah, the linebacker group was impressive. I think just in general, that group was very physical today and made some impressive plays. I think that J-Rob is intelligent. I think his football intelligence shows up. This is a guy who played safety, then played kind of an apex nickel position, then moved into play stack backer in 1 year here. I just think he keeps getting better. But he's a great communicator. He's got a really good understanding of the system, and I think makes all the other players around him better. Last year in particular, he and Pup, we would match those guys with those rookies, put those guys in the game with those young players. So I thought the backer group as a whole, impressive today. Aaron Childs had some great physical plays. Miles Graham, Ty Jackson continues to flash. So that's a good group as a whole. And certainly J-Rob. And look, we get Pup back, he's eventually going to be back. We consider that one of the better groups in the country, in my opinion, at that position. High praise there from the head coach himself. We consider that one of the better groups in the country, in my opinion, at that position. Hard to disagree with him. We've been talking about the different look in that room and how much better they played last year. There's another step for, of course, the young guys that were mentioned there, now in their second years. Pup with another year of experience in this defense. J-Rob, who we're about to hear from. I mean, yeah, this is a good group. Good group. Jade Robinson did meet with the media recently. Here's what he had to say about spring practice.
I feel like the whole room is stepping up and playing a major role and stepping up, and everybody's taking accountability to the next level now with guys like me, Aaron, and Miles, everybody stepping up in the room.
And what are your early impressions of Robert Bala taking over your position group?
He's very energetic, great guy coming in the room and getting us going. And he's learning. We're learning from him, and he's learning from us.
You mentioned, kind of stepping up with Aaron and Miles. You have a little bit more experience than they do.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk about how, you've kind of been able to, maybe mentor them along the way.
I would say really we're just watching film together, get together after practices and just giving them tips. They give me tips, and we just learn from each other.
And obviously, you and Miles are both local guys.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you guys have bonded over a little bit?
A little bit, yes, sir. Because our high schools are a little bit of rivals, and they had beat me in my senior year.
Yeah. Just how exciting has that been? Obviously, it's been a few years now, but still, being so close to home.
It's very exciting.
City, yeah.
It's very exciting playing with Miles and just being a local kid and the legacy kid he is.
How have you seen him and Aaron grow year over year as players?
I can see those guys growing up to be All-Americans. Those guys just took a big leap going into this year right here, Aaron especially and Miles.
How big is it for Aaron especially after not enrolling in spring last year?
I say Aaron took a major leap. He's very focused and locked in right now, and he's dialed in.
Early impressions of Ty Jackson, we've kind of heard that he's had a decent spring. Just what are your thoughts on him coming in as an early enrollee and making an impact?
I feel like he did a great job of coming in early, so he come in and learn the plays, and he's very athletic, and now he's just putting time in the film and learning, and he's going to be a great player.
You guys obviously return a lot of talent at your position, but what does the absence of Shamar mean, I guess? What did it mean for him to leave?
It's a big loss losing Shamar, but guys are just stepping up and playing to their best of their abilities, and guys are balling.
You're saying that Ron Roberts has transitioned into more free-floating role as a defensive coordinator. Just after working under him last year, what are you seeing from him as he moves into that role? How's he helping this defense?
I see he's helping the defense in a major way. He just now he don't have no position to coach, so he's just going through every position and making sure guys giving guys tips and just helping everybody out.
Is the team receptive to that? How are they adapting to him kind of being more overseeing rather than just one position?
The team adapted very well to that. And they're loving, they get their tips from coach, because coach is an older coach, and he's giving everybody those good tips, and that's very helpful.
Good stuff there from Jaden Robinson, but probably an overlooked player. I think before this year, I think knew the importance, especially once Pup Howard went down with injury last year, of a guy who just had to step in and played well. And there were signs of that 2 seasons ago when he was a young guy and had to step in because he looked linebacker recruiting. He was kind of the start of it, but of getting better linebackers, getting true I guess he wasn't really a true linebacker coming out of high school, as you heard Billy Napier say, kind of moved around a bit in high school, but kind of an early plan of fitting him in there. And played some there in high school. Wasn't a total new position for him or trying to fit an edge rusher there at the linebacker spot like we have seen previous staffs do. It just not work. But just being able to fit right in. And then Pup Howard transfers back in. The great recruiting so far at that position of Miles Graham and Aaron Childs. It is a much, much better room than what we were seeing before. And Jaden Robinson is a part of that, and probably overlooked to some degree, even by myself. I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody else out there, but certainly I think now noteworthy of his contributions to that room. Looking forward to seeing his next steps as well. I think as high as we are about that group, there's another step there. Finish this out here. Billy Napier stayed on the defensive side. He was asked about the injuries at the top of the secondary group and how the young defensive backs have stepped up. Quote, I think that it's forcing Jordan Castell's having to play with some different players, and that makes him better. We talked about being a 4-dimensional Gator, He's out there yelling it out today. So I think it's forced him to not to assume. I think you get comfortable if you got Bryce Thornton out there, when you got Sharif Denson and Eric Gates. Obviously Aaron and Bryce and Jordan play a ton together, and also Sharif. So there's comfort. It's kind of like the offensive line that I think continuity is a big deal. But now we got these 2 rookies that haven't played a ton of football. So that's forced him to look over there. And you got Greg Smith and Josiah Davis out there, and that's forcing him to be a great communicator. So we get Bryce back, we get AG back, Sharif back, and DD. That secondary group's got a chance to be really special. It has allowed Greg to make a lot of progress. You know, I think that Stubbs and Lagonza Hayward have gotten more and more reps, so I think that those vets, I think that at the end of the year, they were playing as good as anybody. And I think this is going to prove to be valuable time for some of those young players. And, you know, kind of the thing that we have been talking about all through spring practice that, you know, just really should help Florida, much like it helped that linebacker group last year. And I think how it helped the offensive line last year in spring practice when they were dealing with some injuries to eventually become a group that was able to rely on that experience that they got in spring. And it may have taken a bit in it during the season for it to kind of show up. Now, linebacker, we kind of saw flash early on. Last year, we saw the potential there in that group. But of course, everybody on the team getting better as the season progressed. A lot of talent in that secondary room, and yeah, get those vets back who are dealing with a lot of injuries right now. Nothing major. Get those guys back, and it'd be nice to see them out there. But you know, in the scrimmage, you had Devin Moore and Cormani McLean starting at corner, and then as you saw, Jordan Castell with a bunch of young guys with him back there in that secondary. So a mix there in the secondary, and great to hear Cormani McLean doing some good things too as he's starting beside Devin Moore at that cornerback spot. So good stuff. Good first scrimmage there for the Gators. Lots to good to come out of it. No, hard to know exactly how, you know, we don't know. You heard Billy Napier say there's certain situations that they're working on, third down and long, passing situations. We don't know exactly an offensive line combination, a defensive line combination, ones and twos. And, of course, I think a lot of it is a one offense versus a two defense and a one defense versus a two offense. That is some of it there. But there might be that we don't hear about some mixing of one-on-one and two-on-twos. Some personnel groupings. We don't know all the situations here. So take it with a grain of salt. We all know DJ Lagway is not throwing, so the offense is going to be limited in just that regard too. So defense, not surprising that we hear the defense having the upper hand all spring long so far in the scrimmages. I expect that to be the case. But certainly need to get Aidan Warner, Harrison Bailey caught up, and hopefully nothing to really worry about with Lagway's shoulder. But even if some kind of other injury happens during the season, those guys need to be ready. So maybe a very, very beneficial spring for them as well. Certainly sound like the first scrimmage was beneficial for those guys. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown, covering this first scrimmage here for the Gators Orange and Blue game about 10 days away, about a week and a half away here. So that'll be the second scrimmage and the final scrimmage of spring football. We'll have even more coverage all throughout these next 10 or so days, marching up to the spring game and, of course, recapping that spring game. But we should hear from Billy Gonzalez soon. Billy Gonzalez and Aidan Mizell. That's who we'll hear from wide receivers coming up on an episode of Gators Breakdown. So there we go. Something to look forward to. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.